let's go back on focusing on the interview process for the next Chief Justice. Today is day 3. And tomorrow will be day 4. Started on Monday with Justice Madlanga, and then yesterday was Justice Mandisa Maya, the only female who is among the top 4 nominees. Today, of course, as we saw a short while ago, is Justice Mlambo, Dunstan Mlambo. He's the Gauteng Judge President. They'll be returning there in about 20 or so minutes from now at about 4:30. Things are getting very heated there in terms of the process, and very, very, very interesting. But let's just focus on what took place yesterday. Among other things, there have been a lot of questions around a female candidate, the one and only female candidate for the position of Chief Justice. Numerous questions being posed about women in the judiciary. I also think even today, Judge Mlambo was asked about that. Now, let's just take a look back, just take you back to yesterday when Mandisa Maya was there being interviewed, wondering how she fared. To help us just understand some of that is Cathy Powell, Associate Professor of Public Law at the University of Cape Town, joining us now to discuss yesterday's interview. Cathy, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. We are somehow like taking a breather as well from what's happening today inside the room at the JSE interviews there with Judge Mlambo. We'll be going back there shortly. But just in your view, how did Justice Maya fare yesterday?
I think in her presentation she was excellent. I think once she started being asked questions, her performance was weaker. And I don't think that was her fault. I think it was because she was being asked unacceptable questions and being put in positions that were sexist and unacceptable. So what happened was, it's a bit like my going onto a panel and explaining in detail how I want to change, how the university runs, how the lectures can be improved, and so on. And then when I'm finished, somebody says to me, "So I hear you're a very good kitty mother." And in effect, all those questions sort of praising her for having got where she was as a woman, and Advocate Mpofo's incredibly bad joke that, you and I spent a night together. Those kinds of questions were part of a raft of basically sexist treatment of a woman trying to overcome the inequality that women experience in the judiciary. So I think her presentation was good, but she could only run after that with the questions that were posed. And I think it's a pity. I think that interview showed us more about the JSC than it did about Judge Mandisa Maya.
Yeah, and some people currently might be arguing the same thing about what Judge Mlambo is currently facing. And he was raising just a short while ago the question of fairness about not having been advised before by the JSE of the questions that might be asked for him about rumors of sexual harassment allegations. But Justice Maya yesterday, at some point, seemed to be very irritated and made a very strong point of saying, why are we still wondering whether South Africa is ready rather for a woman Chief Justice? I mean, she was visibly irritated, but she made her point, and very strongly and clearly standing her ground, wondering why even that question is being asked at all.
I agree with you. I'm not trying to claim that she just dissolved. I just don't think she could be shown at her best. I'm very glad that she expressed that women find that question annoying. I think she managed to answer it in one respect, but not in another respect. The way she answered that question was as if the question means, are there any good women judges? And that's not actually what the question means. The question means, is the rest of South Africa ready to accept women as a Chief Justice? And that's a question that no woman should ever have to deal with, because the answer is, who cares? If the rest of South Africa is not ready, why are you accommodating the rest of South Africa instead of sticking to your constitutional principles and promoting gender equality in the Constitutional Court? So what worries me about that question is it suggests that we all have to be really, really sensitive and kind to the people who might feel uncomfortable with having a woman CJ. And it is unthinkable that that should even be an issue at this stage in 2022.
Yeah, I like that view that you're expressing, that really who cares? I mean, you're qualified, woman or not, man or not, you have to do the job. And then there was that issue around the gender equality. What I found fascinating is that at the level of those highly learned beings, as they call themselves, my learned colleagues and stuff like that, they're still not sure as well. I don't know if you picked that up as well, Cathy, as a JC, how to deal effectively with the issues of gender discrimination.
Well, I think that Judge Maya made that clear herself. She did a very good job of pointing out to what extent the judicial governance system did not provide properly for women. There are no rules on sexual harassment. She spoke about maternity leave. She spoke about the various challenges that women in particular face that the system has not accommodated to address. And I mean, that is so ironic that she would speak about there not being rules against sexual harassment and procedures for handling sexual harassment. And almost immediately after she finishes, she faces sexual harassment in the form of that innuendo from Advocate Mpofu. So I think that interview showed us not just that the governance system for the judiciary does not accommodate women properly. It also shows that the governance, well, let me be careful here. I'm not claiming that the JSC governs the judiciary, but it does show that amongst the important influences of what happens with the judiciary are people who have absolutely no idea what sexual equality really means.
Yeah, it looks like we still have a long way to go. Now, one of the things that I understand the interviews are trying to establish, besides your skills and because we all know they are judges and they are all among the top judges, they're all qualified. We all know that. That's a given. It's the other stuff, the leadership skills, the interpersonal skills, how you relate to people, and how did she come across there in your view?
I think she did very well because, first of all, she's got a good track record to call on in that she's done very well at the SCA. She has improved the efficiency of the SCA, but she's also improved the collegiality. And that is a point that she made, but it's also a point made by many of the people in the SCA and her supporters elsewhere. The other thing that I found significant and good in that respect was her response to this idea that while she's doing so well at the SCA now, that she mustn't leave, she must stay in the SCA, because what would the poor SCA do without her? She raised that objection to her moving across to the Constitutional Court. And she pointed out how patronizing it was to assume that the other people on the SCA were not adequately equipped to take over the presidency of the SCA. And I think that attitude, that I'm part of a team and we're all equally qualified and we work together and I would trust my colleagues in this job, shows her respect for the other people on the SCA, which suggests that she's good at interpersonal skills.
She also came across to me, I might be wrong or maybe too simplistic, as a very pragmatic professional and leader when she said where there's a shortage of skills like this country has had, for example, the gap in commercial law, an area of specialization that is predominantly having white lawyers and white male lawyers, if one may point out. She said it doesn't mean that it is a sin to appoint them to act in a particular matter and come and assist.
Yes, she was very focused on getting the job done. And that is often taken as some kind of a placeholder for racism or anti-transformation. But with her own background and with her own work, you can see that in her case that's not true. So she was trying to make sure that the SCA does its job efficiently and properly in all niches of law and calls in the people that are needed for the job. At the same time, she's done an excellent job of improving diversity on the SCA and especially in bringing in more women. So I thought her point about you bring in whoever needs to be brought in to get the job done was well made. And if she makes it, you can't argue that she's trying to simply cover up some kind of opposition to transformation.
Yeah, and she was very clear that she uses those opportunities as well for skills transfer. Thank you very much, Cathy. We'll have to wait and see what President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa will do. We've got one more candidate to be interviewed tomorrow, but still another one today, this afternoon. That's Justice Mlambo. He still has to finish the interview later today.